In the modernized air war arena of this century so far, the current round of air war between India and Pakistan is undoubtedly a high-profile and fierce encounter. The scale and duration of the battle is among the best of its kind. The Indian Air Force has offered the so-called 4.5 generations of Rafale fighter, with the intention of this advanced fighter in the air war to prevail, and the Pakistani Air Force has deployed the latest introduction of the J-10CE fighter. The two sides in the sky of this South Asia to start a thrilling air showdown. According to CNN, citing Pakistani sources, this time India and Pakistan invested a total of 125 fighters into the battle. This fierce air war lasted about 1 hour. In this short but tense hour, every second was full of gunpowder and uncertainty. The Pakistani side revealed that during the fierce firefight, they managed to shoot down 5 Indian fighter jets, including 3 Rafale fighters, 1 Su-30 fighter jet, and 1 MiG-29 fighter jet. It is worth mentioning that Pakistan did not fight without restraint this time, but carried out limited strikes in the light of the overall situation. The Pakistani side said that with its strength, in fact, fully capable of shooting down India's 15 warplanes, just for the consideration of regional peace and stability, did not further expand the results of the war. From a combination of publicly available information, India's downed fighter jets are all located on the Indian side of the border line. India and Pakistan have also confirmed that their respective warplanes did not cross the border to carry out military strikes, but relied on air-to-air missiles and air-to-ground missiles to carry out long-range attacks. This mode of combat not only tests the performance of the two sides of the warplanes, but also puts forward high requirements for the electronic warfare capabilities and combat systems of the two sides. In this air war, the Indian Air Force is almost in the whole electronic suppression state, as blind general failed to find Pakistan J-10CE fighter traces. Indian Air Force probability in the course of the battle did not launch an air-to-air missile, announced the end of the air conflict, and from what is available so far, the Pakistan Air Force shot down 5 Indian fighters, with a perfect record of 0 losses. Such a result is really amazing. However, on social media, there are still some people who question the authenticity of the Pakistan Air Force's performance, but a deeper analysis will reveal that the India-Pakistan conflict has always been the focus of outside attention, and the United States, for its own strategic considerations, has prohibited Pakistan from sending F-16 fighter jets to fight against the Indian Air Force. Therefore, the Pakistani warplanes that took off this time are basically J-10CE and Dragon fighters. If the Pakistani Air Force in the battle losses, the Western media will inevitably exaggerate. India will not let go of this opportunity to carry out public opinion offensive, but the reality is that the Western media collective silence. India also did not make a big fuss over this matter, which undoubtedly from the side of the Pakistan Air Force combat results of the authenticity. It must be said that the Pakistan Air Force in the air war to show the combat power is really impressive. They directly suppressed the Indian Air Force fighter aircraft and ground guidance radar station data communication system, so that Indian warplanes as a headless fly general, unable to coordinate combat. In the Pakistan Air Force to implement the strike is no power to fight back, can only be passive. This time India and Pakistan air conflict once again vividly proved the importance of systematic combat in modern warfare. Although India from the French introduction of the Rafale fighter parameters are very beautiful, with advanced performance and strong combat capability, but the lack of a perfect combat system, just like the solo warrior, it is difficult to play all the strength and ultimately can only be in vain. Sources say that the Pakistani side has deployed ZDK-03 AWACS aircraft, Swedish Ericsson AWACS aircraft, as well as J-10CE fighters and Lord Dragon fighters, totaling around 50 aircraft. Each of these fighters had its own role and cooperated with each other to form an organic whole. The Indian Air Force, on the other hand, has deployed Su-30 MKIs, MiG-29S, Rafales, Mirage 2000s, and a Russian-made A-50 AWACS. And the Indian Air Force has deployed about 75 to 80 warplanes and supporting military aircraft. From the number, India seems to occupy the advantage, but in actual combat, the number does not represent everything. The degree of perfection of the combat system and the coordinated combat capability of the warplanes is the key to determine the victory or defeat. From some of the wreckage of Indian warplanes, air-to-air missiles are still hanging steadily on the hangars of the warplanes, and Indian warplanes crashed near the border line. This fully demonstrates that the Indian Air Force's warplanes are completely blocked at the doorstep and then intercepted, and there is no opportunity to go deep into Pakistani airspace to fight. Recalling the 2019 India-Pakistan conflict, the Indian Air Force warplanes directly crossed the line of control and entered Pakistani airspace to carry out bombing, which can be described as arrogant. But this time, why is the Indian Air Force honest? The biggest reason is still that the Pakistan Air Force has long been different from what it used to be. After the Indian warplanes lifted off to carry out the strike mission, they were directly locked by the Pakistan Air Force, and the cockpit of the Indian warplanes continued to emit the alarm sound of being locked. In this case, Indian fighter pilots do not hurry to escape, but also rushed into Pakistani airspace, is undoubtedly self-seeking death. Pakistan Air Force deployed J-10CE fighters, deployed digital array gallium nitride ESA 2.0 radar. Its performance completely crushed the Indian Rafale fighter. From the public information, J-10CE radar detection distance of more than 200 kilometers, while the Rafale fighters equipped with the RBE-2AA radar detection distance of only 150 kilometers. In terms of over-the-horizon combat, the Rafale is clearly at a disadvantage, which is why the IAF is unable to counteract it. When Pakistan's J-10CE fighters launched a long-range strike, the Indian Air Force radar simply not be found. J-10CE fighters can only watch their own fighters were shot down. Indian Rafale fighters. So, the Indian Air Force Su-30 MKI fighters Morpole crotch. Its passive phased array radar is not even as good as the Rafale fighters. In fact, the Indian Air Force not only radar detection capability in general, its air-to-air missile strike range are below 160 kilometers. The Pakistani introduction of the Parak-15E air-to-air missile, its actual strike range up to 200 kilometers. This time the India-Pakistan air war, the two sides are competing for who has more advanced radar, who has a stronger airborne early warning capability, and air-to-air missiles with a longer range. The Pakistan Air Force used RZDK-03 early warning aircraft, as well as J-10CE fighters, Dragon fighters, and then carry Thunderbolt 15 air-to-air missiles. Combination of combat. This is the Pakistan Air Force systematic combat, a great victory. The Pakistan Air Force has set up a highly modernized combat system of detection means locking, locking means destroying, and every fighter aircraft participating in the war can quickly discover the target and lock the Indian fighter aircraft. If not for Pakistan's restraint, indeed can shoot down more Indian warplanes. The India-Pakistan air war is not only a competition between the two countries' air forces, but also a direct competition between the combat system and the performance of advanced warplanes. Pakistan Air Force with advanced combat system and excellent performance of the warplane in this air war shine, but also for the development of the world's air force to provide valuable experience and inspiration.